Hello everyone and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been with RICS for over 13 years. I currently sit within our thought leadership and analytics part of the organisation, and my role is to look at the impact of data and technology right across the built and natural environment. And with over 110,000 qualified members working worldwide right across that property life cycle, all the way through land use, through planning and development, construction, brokerage, valuation, building surveying, building operations. It's a really varied and rich canvas upon which data and technology, and now particularly AI, is having a profound effect. And indeed, all our members work across the various asset types: land itself, residential, commercial, alternative assets, and indeed infrastructure. So once again, a very wide-ranging profession around which AI and data and tech is having a huge impact. And today I'm really glad to have Rhodri join me from Scafol. So before we get into the kind of the meat and drink and the bits and bytes, as it were, it'd be great to hear a bit about your backstory and the backstory of Scafol.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of entwined, really. So originally, I'm a bit delayed in my career. I used to be a professional rugby player for the first 10 years of adulthood. Obviously, that comes to an end. It's not something you'll do till you retire. So I naturally fell into the kind of property sector. I worked for some, quite big corporate companies in the onset. One of them, I was lucky enough to fall in with a semi-sized independent company, to the point where they were actually using dictation and so on and so forth to do their reports, and they were spending a fair amount of money every month because they were quite a sizable company to provide this service for players, to the point where the owner decided that he wanted to invest that money and create something which he had control over, and he would be able to be more efficient with the surveyor's time to do their reports and have a good work-life balance, but also get more surveys done. And that was initially how Scafol was created, but it was basically developed by 20-30 surveyors giving real-time feedback on what's working, what needs to change. And over the course of, I think it's about 20,000 surveys, it basically developed into what it is today, with feedback from not just the surveyors but coordinators and so on and so forth, and clients. My personal side of things, obviously, I qualified as a surveyor 4 or so years ago, and worked for several companies. Had a really good mentor at a small independent based in Penzance called Anthony Richards, who kind of got me up to speed. He retired. I moved across into this company what I talked about, and have since moved slightly sideways in regards to providing software writing, survey writing software, but I still try and go out and do surveys every couple of times a month, just to make sure that I can talk the talk as well as walk the walk, I guess, is the best way.
No, and it always cheers me when I talk to tech partners and they have that kind of combination of obviously technical skill in terms of developing solutions, but that critical understanding of the practice area itself, because obviously it's critical that we have software and technology that really does help surveyors do their job. I mean, reflecting back on what you've seen, what do you think have been the most kind of influential technology innovations that have come into the sector in the last 10 years or so?
I mean, if I was to be honest about it, I would say the mobile phone. And I know it sounds a bit random, but it's not just a mobile phone anymore, is it? I mean, really, it's a device that you can make calls on, amongst many other things. And you look at the kind of improvements in such things of the quality of camera nowadays. I mean, you get a decent iPhone or Samsung, and the camera on the actual device is as good as any digital camera you can pretty much get, short of going out with a proper expensive Canon SLR, whatever the type of camera is, and it enables you to get a quality picture with zooms and zoom outs and so on and so forth. And then you can look at the likes of drone footage as well. It kind of reduces limitations because of the size of height of buildings. You go to flats, you can see the roof. I live in Cornwall, so I'm always going to fishing villages and St. Ives, for example, and Mousel, where the street width is about 6 meters in width, so you can't actually go far enough back to see the roof slopes. enables you to kind of see more detail and give a more accurate kind of report back to your clients, rather than a survey that's just got limitations saying, I can't report on the roof because I couldn't see it, I can't report gutters, I can't see it. So it just enables more detail. And then following on from that, obviously, like the company that I'm a part of, the ability to, you know, write a survey on site, for me, it's game changing, not just because of the many aspects that I'm sure we'll no doubt go into in a bit, but just the ability to take real-time data, capture real-time data and information about that property there and then, rather than illegible site notes, if you're anything like my handwriting, and then having to refer back and cross-reference at a later date when you can't physically see what you're talking about.
Yeah. No, and it's funny, isn't it, that it's so much of this is kind of technology that wasn't necessarily designed for that purpose, but it's that kind of prosaic underlying technology that now is literally in everybody's pocket, which really has revolutionized that kind of data capture and, as you say, that ability to see hard to view you know, pieces of a building. I mean, how do you think that's really, you know, and other innovations, how do you think that's changed the survey industry, given the kind of IT and software that's now available to surveyors and obviously their support teams as well? What changes have you seen?
So I think there's two ways. There's a positive change and a negative change, and it very much depends on the use of this kind of innovative technology. So used in a right way, it's brilliant, because, you know, it gives them more depth in the survey. As a surveyor, you have the ability to report on more issues. As I said, there's, you know, no massive amounts of limitations, and, you know, if someone pays a good amount of money for a survey, for you to say, I couldn't see the roof, I can't see the gutters, I couldn't see the hidden valley, this, that, whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, the client themselves benefit from it. Again, for example, I can talk about Scafol because it's something that we developed, but the photos they receive. So, you know, normally you would get a report and it'd be a PDF, or, you know, sent to you via email or printed off, and it'd have little thumbnail pictures. You either end up with two things. You either end up with a report which is 400 pages long with half decent sized picture, or a report that is 60, 70 pages long, but the pictures are tiny. With the technology and innovation we've used, we have a hyperlink under every photo. So yes, the photo itself is a thumbnail, but a client can click on that on the PDF and it will take them to a high res, you know, monitor sized picture, which will help them see what is being talked about in the report. So I think the client benefits massively. As a surveyor, again, you know, there's positive, because it can either be one or two ways. It speeds up your efficiency on completing the survey and the actual writing of the report, and you can use that to do more surveys and earn a better living. Or if you're anything like me, you can use that to increase your work life. I've worked with surveyors in the past. They start at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're still sitting at their computer at 9 o'clock in the evening, and there's only so long you can do that for.
Yeah.
So with the innovation and technology, it's not making shortcuts, but it's making surveyors more efficient with their time. But then the negative side of things is people can see it as a shortcut. And, you know, this comes down to the individual surveyor. With survey writing solutions, for example, it's not going to do everything for you. It will provide, you know, they provide basic templates for how you can write a survey, but it's not taking away the ability of a surveyor to report on that property. You know, if you go to 1 2-bedroom semi-detached house, it shouldn't be the same as the next, even if it is next door.
Yeah.
You know, you could use as a tick box exercise and not use your own qualifications and skills to bespoke it to that property. Or you can just think, oh, it's that, I'm going to duplicate that one, or I'm going to do that. It's the same thing. No two properties are the same. So
Exactly.
you know, it needs to be, it's with everything, with all technology, it needs to be used correctly. Otherwise it doesn't become a positive, it becomes a bit of a hindrance. So I think that in itself is a testament to whatever surveyor uses it and the actual output of technology. You can have a drone, amazing, and it can take fantastic photos, but if you don't know how to fly the drone, it's going to be useless.
Indeed, or indeed, if you're not able to interpret the photographs properly, in terms of the knowledge. I mean, you mentioned, the real productivity gain, and also that ability to effectively write the report almost in real time while you're at the property. But I guess there is that balance between being able to capture a lot of information at the property, write a lot of the comments in real time as you look at the potential defects. But I guess there's also that balance about being then able to reflect on that and then produce the final report, perhaps when you're back in the office. What are your thoughts about that balance between that wonderful ability to record and collect so much information in real time, and that reflective phase of back to the office, produce the final report, and have hopefully the best of both worlds, I guess?
Yeah, exactly that. And again, it comes down to time. So you need that time of reflection, regardless of whether you are handwriting a report or using kind of technology. But with survey writing solutions, again, it gives you more time to do that. So, for example, my kind of methodology is I try and with the use of Scafol when I do my surveys, I probably write about, depending on the property and any issues, anywhere between 80 and 90% of the survey whilst I'm there. When I come back, obviously I have a good amount of time then. I'm not rushing for time to meet deadlines and keep the client happy. I'll give the client a call and I'll speak to them through the report because it's fresh in my mind, and that's the best time. If there's any points in which I think I need to do a little bit of bit more work on, I'll be honest with them and I inform that, and I'll say there'll be more detail in the report. But then you have that kind of ability to sit there and go through it. Anything that you do need to do a little bit more investigations with, you've got that time because the body of it is there, and it becomes a fine-tuning task as opposed to a creation task. And then with everything, again, you have that time to reflect on it, and then when you have that, you wake up the next day or 2 days later when you need to, obviously whatever your kind of turnaround times are agreed on, you can reflect on it having stepped away, because you have that ability to. You don't have 2 days of writing up a report because you've got to write up say a 70, 80, 90 page report. You do a lot of it on site, but then you step away from it and then you reflect at a later time, knowing the bulk of the work has been done, but you look at it with a fresh set of eyes. I mean, if you're anything like me, if you read something over and over and over and over and over again, I become word blind. I need that
Exactly.
time. Exactly. You want to step back from it, and then you want to read it. You want to start again from a point in which you're looking at it almost from the client's point of view as well as the surveyor's point of view, to make sure what you've put makes sense and you're conveying your point across. And having the extra time allows you to do that without work piling up behind you as well, and the constraints and pressures of the industry building.
No, I mean, Rhodri, as you know, I mean, a survey, as well as the physical inspection, you obviously have to have that kind of desktop research in terms of locational information that goes into the report as well. How do you kind of integrate that kind of desktop work with obviously all the data collection that you do physically at the property, like moisture and those kind of very, quite technical things that need to be done in terms of on-site? How do you integrate those two streams, that kind of almost a checklist, dare I say, of things like moisture and damp and all those other issues, and then that desk research piece?
So with the desktop research, I mean, you can do your desktop research before you go out. Obviously, you would old school or new school, for lack of better terminology. However, having that with you at hand will help when you're on site. So there's many reasons. For example, you want to obviously refer to, for example, geology and flood zones and stuff like that when you're completing the report. Having the ability in Scafol, for example, you have access to that. You upload that before you go out when you've done your basic research. When you're on site, there's a click of a button and you can get access to your radon, your flood, your damp, your geology, your Japanese knotweed, all those different areas in which you want to talk about. Also, what it helps is when you're looking at a property and then you're looking at defects and stuff like that could be directly attributed to some of the desktop research. So you talk about, there might be clay subsoils, or it might be a high flood zone. And if you see defects relating to that, you've got direct access to that information to correlate your findings and help complete that report whilst on site, which again just saves time and it's more efficient rather than printing it off and having them in a folder. And if you're out there and it's raining and you've got one of those little clipboards with the, that was an innovation, clipboard with a plastic lid.
Yeah.
It just helps with that. So you've got all the information that you would need at hand, whether it be the visual of the property to complete the inspection or the desktop, the information. You could have all your planning. I live in Cornwall. Cornwall planning portal is fantastic. You can have the entire planning history and building regulations history of that property at hand to look at when you're going through the survey, looking at, there's a wall been taken out there. Did they have the relevant permissions? There's an extension on the, what's the planning for that? So having the ability to have all that at hand is amazing. But also you talk about data capture. So Scafol, for example, again, I use Scafol example because obviously I use it. You can download a floor plan. You can take the general floor plans from Rightmove or Rightmove Plus, previous transactions, and so on and so forth. Ask the estate agents for a copy, and then you can use that on Scafol to log moisture. You follow the home surveying standards and get it at all the relevant kind of distances apart within a property. But then, weirdly, there's, you can see in the background, you can log that. It's not very clear because my camera's rubbish. But you can, the irony of that. You can log those kind of damp meter readings throughout a property. You can mark where you didn't have access because there might be a cupboard, cabinet, and then you've got that for prosperity. But then also you can look back on that to help you when you're looking at, you're talking about the damp in section, E3, I think it is. Yeah, we'll go with E3. But then you can directly think, I've damped it, I've marked the reasons here, and then you can look at the photos from the external walls and say, crikey, there's a defective gutter or a downpipe here, or there's a large crack to the render here, and then it can help you work out, without any kind of intrusive investigations, potential reasons why there are these readings and help you best inform the clients for possible next steps and resolutions and rectification works and so on and so forth. So again, it just helps be better at what you do in a more efficient way.
And Rhodri, it'd be nice to kind of move on and discuss one of the areas around, because clearly, survey in the context of conveyancing is an incredibly important part, and obviously a very important part of that conveyancing process is the title report, that part of the process. How does your approach and Scafol deal with that interaction between what the survey comes out with and also that information that needs to go to the legal advisor, and indeed that title report, so the two things are joined together in a way that the home buyer really gets that best advice by putting together the legal aspects and indeed the aspects that come from the physical survey?
So there is a lot of information in a building survey that, or a level 2 home survey that needs to be conveyed to the client. And as you said, the legal advice, giving advice to legal advisors is a big responsibility for a surveyor. And it's something that's sometimes lost because you get so bogged down in looking at a crack or a damp and movement and asbestos and all those bits and bobs that you don't necessarily think, guarantees and flood zones and all these kind of bits. So what we've done in Scafol, we've almost given prompts to help the surveyor. So there's loads of links built in the report that would pre-populate sections later on in, such as further investigations. An example, if you chose a paragraph in Scafol saying there's replacement UPVC windows, we've built in the ability to add your own links, but there's also a standard kind of library of links where that would also pre-populate a paragraph in the guarantees section saying, please seek fence certification, fence verification, and any potential guarantees for replacement windows. So something that is quite often not overlooked, but because you're having to cross-reference a section that is 23 pages prior to that section, we'll stick a prompt in there for you, and you can change those so that they are sufficient, or they, you can elaborate on that paragraph, or you can leave it as it is. But it gives that kind of context, shared utilities, seek confirmation that there are utilities. If it's got mains, gas, electric, and water, it will automatically say that based on your selections. Or if there is no gas supply, it will take out the gas and say this and whatever. So also gives the ability to be specific rather than saying check the utilities. We're saying check the mains, electric and water are indeed connected. So it kind of builds these links into the report. So as you complete the front end, the actual inspection aspect of a survey, you know, you're looking at your main sections, which is what, D, E, grounds and services and all those bits and bobs. Off the back of what you put in those, it will help pre-populate the back end for you to fine tune at a later date, but using any prompts provided to give contextual information to the, and great advice to your clients to forward on to their legal advisors. So yeah, beneficial in that regard, I believe.
Indeed, indeed. You've already touched on to some extent, Rhodri, the kind of work-life balance aspect, but it'd be interesting to sort of get your thoughts a bit more deeply in the kind of drivers around efficiency for surveyors and surveying firms in modern times, because clearly they're in a marketplace where time seems to be of the essence, but at the same time we need to balance that with work life and not burn out, but obviously providing the right kind of service to home buyers and homeowners. What's your sense now of the market dynamics and how efficiency has perhaps, dare I say, become even more important than it was maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I've worked for several companies on a range of different sizes, and I've, you know, had dealings with larger companies as well. And I obviously understand the requirements for having to make money. Surveyors, you know, they don't demand, but they, you know, it's a quite well-paid job if you look at other jobs. But in order to justify the wage surveyors get paid, they need to generate that amount of income. So efficiency comes in the part that a surveyor can produce the required amount of surveys. I mean, many large companies work on point system, you know, 7 points or 6 points a day, 1 point being evaluation, 3 points being home buyers, and 6 points being a build level 3. Sorry, the change.
Yeah.
But efficiency comes when you give the surveyor the ability to meet those expectations without working from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the evening. But also on the flip side of that, as a larger company, there's always the engine room behind any company, which is your coordinators and your administrative teams and stuff like that. But they're non-fee earners. So a company that wants to be able to provide a good wage for a surveyor to attract good surveyors, you know, your high quality experienced surveyors, in order to attract good staff, you need to make sure that you're providing them with a work-life balance which is sustainable for them and they're not going to leave after 2 years, but also provide them with the support they need so that they can just focus on their job. With Scafol, for example, there's many features in there such as workflow management, the automated generation of terms of engagements, which is based on, you know, the information inputted by the coordinators, automated quotes based through websites, you know, lead generation integration with sites like, you know, Compare My Move and all the big ones that all these companies use, enables them to have not less staff, but the staff are more efficient and they can handle a larger kind of scale of work, which enables companies to scale up without having to onboard loads and loads and loads of new coordinators just to service more and more surveyors. So that efficiency comes and it helps surveyors have a good work-life balance. It helps the coordinators do their job more efficiently and less stressfully. You know, have you ever tried booking a blimmin' survey, dealing with estate agents and clients and vendors? It's not an easy task. It's not, you know, people think it might be quite a simple job. It's definitely not, because you're an intermediary, and anyone that knows being an intermediary is you're relying on other people to do other stuff to get your job done. So Scafol helps with all that because of all the other, you know, the CRM element of it, but also the archiving, you know, it acts as a cloud storage device. So if anyone ever came back and asked a question, all the information is in one place. They can look at the note section, which shows when the terms of engagements were filled out, when the invoices were sent off, when the invoices were paid, when it was audited, you know, when the all the photos are stored and stuff like that. So it's just a really good tool all in one place to help the coordinators, the administrative team, the surveyors, the whole company, you know, anyone you have internal auditing, they can access everything they need to. So there's many benefits in regards to the efficiency, but at the end of the day, it's there because it's an industry designed to make money. And with comparison markets these days, prices sometimes are lower based on the way that, you know, comparison websites work. So in order to facilitate the increased leads, you need to be able to facilitate increased workloads. So it kind of helps with that side of things as well.
Indeed. No, and I suppose it's almost about a bit like the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? The actual physical survey is only just one part of that whole process that needs to be managed and needs to be done efficiently, as you say. I mean, you've obviously referred to the you know, the RICS home survey standard, and as we all know, standards evolve and change over time. There was a new version, it's a few years ago now, but it still feels relatively fresh in terms of that new version. I mean, how does software help the surveyor? Because clearly they have to, you know, work to standards. That's critically important, and obviously those standards will evolve over time. How do you see software like Scafol and others making sure that actually that the software is going with the grain, not against it, in terms of helping surveyors make sure they do the right thing and adhere to standards, because the standard is all about delivering the right kind of service for the consumer?
Absolutely. I mean, first, it's important to mention, yeah, with the home survey, it's important that every surveyor does their CPD. You know, there's a requirement for CPD for that very reason, is they stay up to date with the modern changes in the industry. But how kind of software can help is you can help build in that kind of information. So when there's greater requirements for, you know, regulations and I mean, it's a massive. I did a podcast recently with a really renowned surveyor, and we talked about the different regulations and requirements within a home survey, and particularly the differences between level 3 and a level 2, where there are sometimes somewhat blurred lines. But software can help because, again, you can help with prompts and reminders. And, you know, as a Scafol, for example, as a company, we make sure we update all the requirements and regulations to suit when there's an industry change, we change to match. So we're always staying on the cusp, should we say, of these regulations to ensure that anyone using our software is up to date with, you know, if you have to save something for a certain amount of time, if you have to talk about building regulations, for example, say that they change the minimum requirement for the depth of fiberglass insulation in the roof, we'll make sure that any content we have in the service that we provide is updated to match. And it's something we're constantly monitoring so that we can help anyone that takes on our services to make sure that they maintain their kind of minimum requirements in regards to what is required and the regulations in regards to sending out terms of conditions, GDPR consent, invoices, all that sort of stuff. We help make sure that we are providing a service that enables them to provide the required service. So, and I think software is a big help in that, because particularly people that run their own business, they don't have swaths of backroom administrative teams and stuff like that. They're doing the front end, the back end, and the middle end. So as a company, as a software company, we want to be able to help them do everything efficiently, compliantly, and effectively. I couldn't think of any 3 better cliches there, but you know, they're fairly prompt, I think.
No, indeed, and as you say, eventually, you know, we need to see technology as a real support piece there in terms of helping members comply with regulations and requirements, and as you say, you know, deliver an ethical and responsible service. I mean, in a slightly negative sort of connotation, what are the kind of constraints or limitations of sort of survey writing software in terms of what is still down to the members? Because I think there's sometimes a danger that not our profession, but one could imagine people seeing technology as something they can abdicate responsibility to, whereas as you know better than I do, it's critical that surveyors use their expertise, their skepticism, their due diligence to survey a property and not expect the sort of technology to do it for them almost.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I mean, we'll go back to the point we talked about previously, where I said that there is a positive and a negative to the innovation of technology. It's the negative and the constraints are more based around how someone uses technology. So in Scafol, again, there's a standard library of paragraphs and stuff like that. But what we've tried is we've tried to make it so we make the surveyor bespoke it to that property. So, you know, when there's a paragraph, you can select it, but we'll leave blanks in there and areas where you have to complete the picture. you know, and you know, we encourage people to follow that trail. We refer back from one section, you know, as noted in section so and so. So we try and build these links to make sure everything is directly for that property. We don't want someone to use our software as the be all and end all in regards to they can literally press 3 or 4 buttons on this page, this page, this page, and it's not a checklist, you know. And people that see that as a checklist, that you know, that's not what it is. It's a framework where we will guide you into creating your survey, but you still need to do your job as a competent surveyor to complete the task. You know, what the future holds for, you know, software and technology in surveying. I've had conversations with people, you talk about AI and stuff like that, and how to take a, have you seen the apps where you can take a picture of a plant and it identifies the plant, tells you what it is? And
exactly.
okay, so why can't you develop that for surveying in the future, where you take a picture of a chimney and it identifies the flashing is loose, there's pointing issues, there's crumbling to the floor, all these things. Why is that not something that can be happening in the future? However, it still comes back to the fact that you will still need a competent surveyor to interpret data.
Indeed.
And sure that is in actual fact the case, and also putting the defects in one section and another section together and following that trail back, because it's not all about highlighting defects, it's highlighting the cause of defects and what's needed to rectify these defects.
Indeed.
There's your constraints, is basically you still need the surveyor, and anyone that wants to use kind of technology to, and it's not Scafol, it's any technology, like I said, it's a drone, it's a imaging camera. I mean, you can use one of these cool thermal imagery cameras and take a picture of a building. It will give you data to interpret. You have to interpret it still though. So if anything, the constraints of technology and surveying is the competency of a surveyor, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I say, you know, that sort of final comment about the future is that there will be more technology, and as you say, it will become that technology that takes a degree of a step towards identifying defects, as you say, as an example, through that computer vision. But it will always be around somebody using their due diligence and professional experience to interpret that, and as you say, then offer advice on the remedy and the risk and all those kind of things that you know better than I do. And you know, I do know of technologies where people are using that kind of computer vision to kind of almost triage and certainly sort of identify obvious defects in that way. But ultimately, you need a professional to interpret that information and give the advice that says this is how you remedy, and there'll be, as ever, issues that a photograph can't capture. You know, things that do need to be physically inspected in that way. And as you said yourself, the report is so large and so wide-ranging, putting that together still requires that human experience to do it. And you know, as you also know, you know, you live in an area with granite, hence radon, so you get these local issues that, you know, you need that local expertise. You need to understand the local building pathology, you need to understand the local geography, the local flooding issues. You can get a degree of data on that can be automated, but there's nothing like local knowledge to understand those idiosyncrasies. And as you said, you can have two properties that are next door to each other that are very different in terms of what the survey comes out with.
Absolutely. You look at costings as well. I mean, people provide costs for repairs and, you know, estimates and stuff like that. I mean, where I live, what I would pay for someone to go and fix a roof is going to be completely different to what someone's going to pay in Birmingham or London, or, you know, pricing is so a variety. I mean, you could get one gentleman from down the road that's going to charge £400 a day, and another one slightly up the road that's going to charge £200 a day. So that variation is always key as well, and having that, you know, that knowledge of what it is irreplaceable. And you can talk about technology till the cows come home. Is that even a saying? But anyway, you could talk about as much as you like, but from my point of view, I think the surveyor is always the most integral cog in completing a survey, and any software or innovative technology that tries to change that fact will always fail, because you need that competency, you need that experience, that ongoing training, experience, vernacular knowledge and local knowledge to help provide absolute standards that clients require.
Indeed. Well, I think of that basis, I think we can be optimistic with the future that it will bring us more productivity gains, but it won't in any way, I think, replace those critical human skills. Well, for today, Rhodri, it's been fascinating, a really illuminating conversation. Thanks very much for your time, and look forward to catching up again soon.
No, genuine pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.